Guys, I just want to give you a heads up that this is the first chapter that has been edited. It contains sexy stuff that cannot be on the public podcast that runs on YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all of that. The complete episode with all that sexiness in it is in both the audiobook version, which you can purchase from the Wraith Range shop, and it's in the private member podcast feed, which has the chapters uploaded to stream right from a page on the membership site. So if you sign up to be a Wraith Rain member, you can stream this chapter and a heck of a lot more, and it's all unedited. Or if you purchase the audiobook, you get the full audiobook, nothing edited. And as the actor for Julian and Christian says,
and let me tell you, it is worth it to get past the paywall. Those scenes are steamy.
Last time on Everdark, Balthazar is coming to terms with the fact that he will not be Christian and Julian's master. Christian urges him to see the benefit of being allied with the Vampire King. Balthazar isn't convinced that Damon is who he claims to be. Now we turn back to Julian and Damon as the Vampire King recovers from his dramatic entrance. Everdark, Episode 17, Siren Song. Julian allowed his fingertips to drift over the back of Damon's right hand. The skin was soft. His fingers slid back to the wrist that was surprisingly fine-boned but strong. He couldn't encircle it, though. Damon was large all over. Julian shifted his gaze to Damon's face for the 500th time and studied what he saw. The Vampire King's eyelids were still closed, his dark, long lashes fanned against high cheekbones. Damon's skin had a slightly golden cast, though sunlight had never touched it as far as Julian knew. Aversion to sunlight seemed to be one of the myths that were true about vampires, but maybe the Vampire King could withstand sunlight too. Another difference between vampires and immortals. Or maybe to look sunburnished was just another gift the Vampire King had. Damon's jaw was strongly defined, tapering to a well-made chin. His lips were sinfully sensual, and a soft rose color that made Julian think that they might taste sweet. His nose was noble, straight and long. He had a broad, clear forehead that indicated intelligence, but also passion. Julian remembered again how Damon had come into this world, this room, actually, smashing through the wall between worlds in the guise of an army of wolves, only to simply overwhelm a powerful vampire like Lord Balthazar Ravenscroft with utter ease. Those were the actions of a passionate man.
But is it because he cares so deeply about me? Or did he simply not want something that he considers to be his taken away?
Julian believed it was likely the latter. Damon didn't know Julian well enough to care for him. He wasn't upset by this fact, even though he was far more romantic, at least on the outside, than Christian. He wasn't a fool. And yet, I came for you. Julian shivered at those remembered words of Damon's. They held such power, such simple words, yet they meant so much. Julian shut his eyelids and shook his head.
What am I doing? I don't know him. I hated vampires just yesterday. And here I am wondering if one of them might care for me, half hoping he does.
With Julian's eyes closed, his other senses increased, and he could smell his spit up from earlier on the shirt he wore. His nose wrinkled and he looked down at the ruined clothing. He plucked at it with distaste.
I need a shower and a new set of clothes.
Christian had already put out some drawstring pants and a long-sleeved shirt that would likely fit him on the bed. Balthazar was about his same size. He knew where the bathroom was from seeing where Balthazar had gone to get him water, but his nose would have led him there in any case. He realized he could smell shampoo and soap quite clearly emanating from the dark doorway opposite the bed. Julian studied Damon's face one last time, wondering if it was safe to leave him, if only for a quick shower. He was still unconscious. There was no change from earlier that he could see.
He'll be fine,
he told himself.
He wouldn't have risked his life just to stop me from drinking from Balthazar. That would be insane. He's just tired. Right. Tired.
The bag of blood was still halfway full and was dripping into the vampire lord's arm, so that wouldn't need to be changed any time soon. Maddie had left them to check on Elena again. He thought of calling her back while he cleaned up. Hopefully she could watch Damon while he bathed. He really couldn't bear the stink of blood any longer. He stood up and found a hand gripping his right wrist. His head snapped towards Damon's face. The Vampire King's glowing red eyes were fixed upon him.
"You're awake!"
Julian cried unnecessarily, but he was thrilled it was true. Damon was awake. He really wasn't dying or hurting too badly. At least, that clear, intent gaze didn't show any pain or sickness or weakness at all.
Let me call Maddie and—
Where were you going? It took Julian a second to register that Damon's lips were not moving and to decipher the meaning of the words. Damon hadn't opened his mouth once.
"Why don't you speak out loud?"
Julian asked. One of those elegant, expressive eyebrows rose. It is more efficient speaking mind to mind, is it not?
"Not really. No one else seems to be able to hear you except me."
Julian pointed out. You are the only one I care to speak with in this den of thieves, Damon answered, his eyes hooding. Now, where were you going, fledgling? It was Julian's turn to raise his eyebrows. He let out a startled laugh as he repeated,
"Den of thieves? I assume you're saying that because Balthazar was going to feed me. But remember—"
That hand tightened on his wrist. Let us never speak of that again. You will never feed from another master. You will never—
Now, hold on!
Julian's temper flared.
I can feed from who I want to. And considering you're still too weak to feed me now, I'm going to have to feed from someone else, so—
Damon was suddenly sitting up. The bag of blood had levitated from the stand where it was dripping into his arm, into his hand. That mouth that had not opened to speak opened to tear the top of the bag off with ease. White fangs flashed as he drank down the entire bag in one gulp. The cooler near the side of the bed that contained more blood packs was suddenly flying to Damon's hand too. The lid slammed open, and Damon did the same to the half-dozen bags inside as he'd done to the first. His eyes, which had been the color of banked coals before, were glowing like living flames as he finished the last. Julian blinked rapidly.
Did you just— I suppose after the wolf thing that I shouldn't be surprised that you can move things with your mind too, but fucking hell. It's like you used the Force, or—
Damon's hand was under his chin, cutting off his flow of words. It was not a violent touch. It was incredibly gentle. The touch told Julian that he was treasured. He met those burning eyes. You will only feed from me. Damon's mind voice was quiet.
If you're strong enough.
Julian answered just as quietly, but with as much force.
I'm not putting you in danger again. You can't make me do that. Are we clear?
Damon finally inclined his head, breaking the stare down that had unconsciously been occurring between them, and he released Julian's chin. The loss of that touch felt strange, almost as if something was missing. Agreed, the Vampire King said.
You agree? Just like that?
Julian had expected a fight. I respect your desire to protect me. Not that it is necessary, the Vampire King said. We need to get more blood. He made a face as he looked at the scattered bags on the bed. From a person. Not these contrivances.
Yeah, I thought they were pretty gross too.
Julian agreed. I am sure you did find them quite unappetizing. You are too young to be drinking from anyone but me, even if I was inclined to allow it, Damon explained. Julian shook his head as another flare of irritation lit up in his chest like a match being struck.
Just when I think we're starting to understand one another, you're making proclamations again.
You are my fledgling. I am both your master and your king. Making proclamations is what I do. Damon's plush lips were curled into a surprisingly endearing smile. The irritation died away as quickly as it had sprung up, and Julian found himself smiling back.
Well, just so you're aware that what I do is go my own way. I'll follow yours if it makes sense, but nobody rules me. I bow to no king. You'll have to earn my respect, just like anyone else. In fact, it'll be far harder for you, because you're actually demanding fealty.
I will take that as a challenge, Damon answered, still smiling and appearing more pleased. It is good that you have fire in you. My fledgling should be strong in both mind and body, intelligent and beautiful. Julian found himself coloring, caught completely off guard by this compliment.
Well, compared to you, I look like leftovers, but okay.
Damon looked at Julian through those dark, long lashes. I look forward to showing you just how beautiful I find you. Julian was stunned at the comment once more. Heat, though, flared in between his legs. Damon was probably the most beautiful person he'd ever met, but he also had a strength and power that Julian hadn't been exposed to before. He was used to being the one stronger than his partner. The thought of being pursued by someone who topped him in all ways, or at least wanted to, was a surprising thrill. Before Julian could respond to the blatant flirting, the Vampire King was speaking again. But first, you were thinking of going somewhere when you thought I was sleeping. It must have been important for you to leave, as you have been a very keen watcher.
I wanted to make sure you were okay,
Julian admitted. That act had his shirt ruffling and the scent of vomit rising up from the material. His nose wrinkled again.
But I stink to high heaven. I want to shower and change.
He gestured to the clothes on the bed. Damon picked up the shirt and sniffed it. A frown crossed his handsome features.
Well, what's wrong?
It smells like him. Damon was holding the offending garment with 2 fingers as if it stunk.
You mean like Balthazar? Well, yeah, those are his clothes. Mine are back at the house.
He answered and reached for the offending garment. Damon kept it just out of his reach, still frowning. I do not like for you to smell of him.
Yeah, well, he and I are the same size, and I don't want to smell like vomit any longer, so you're going to have to deal.
Julian yanked the shirt from Damon's hand and grabbed the pants before the Vampire King decided that those offended him too. He will think you are showing him favor by wearing his things. Damon was still frowning.
Balthazar can think what he likes, though I am not showing him favor by borrowing a shirt and pants. I'm grateful he turned Christian and for his help. Did you see what he did in the Siren blood den? He didn't have to come get me, but he did.
Julian reminded him. He wished you for himself, a pair of beauties. Do not think he acted out of charity. Damon waved away Balthazar's actions as if they were nothing. Julian found that unfair.
You're probably right on one level, but I think you're judging him a lot more harshly than you would have if he hadn't been trying to feed me, per my request, remember?
Julian said. I am his king. The other, the big one, understood that immediately. Balthazar had no thought of the offense he would be giving me by his wrongful actions. The Vampire King's eyes blazed.
Arceus is a priest, though. He's big into faith, I think. Balthazar didn't believe you even existed,
Julian said.
He just thought you were some old vampire who abandoned me. He really didn't, maybe even doesn't think you're the daemon in all the stories.
The Vampire King slid his legs off the bed and appeared to be contemplating standing. Julian felt a twinge of worry that he would not be strong enough. But then Damon got up gracefully without a quiver. What do you mean, does not believe I exist? Julian had to look up to see Damon's face. His chin only came to Damon's shoulder. It was a little unnerving how big the Vampire King was. But his physical prowess seemed to be nothing compared to the things he could do without moving a muscle. Julian scrubbed the back of his head as he realized the minefield he'd likely just walked into.
Hey guys, if you're thinking of subscribing to wraithrain.com just for the uncut podcast chapters, there's so much more to the membership. Most of what I do are written stories. So since 2010, 12 years ago, I can't even believe it, I've had my own serial subscription site. I have 3 or 4 stories that are currently running, and I update those with 3 or 4 chapters every month a piece. In fact, the sequel to Everdark is in one of the stories I'm updating right now. Once a story is done, it's left on the site as part of the archive. There are over 12 years of completed serials between 150,000 words for a short one and over 500,000 words for a longer one like Everdark. I hope you check it out. Remember, you can get the complete, uncut, unedited full sexy times Everdark chapters if you are a member of Wraith Reign.
Sophia had told him the tragic history of the immortals and the vampires in a dispassionate way, and while parts had been terrible to hear, they weren't personal to him. The other 10 immortals hadn't been his friends and confidants. They hadn't been the people he had relied upon to feed him. Again, one of those hands was beneath his chin. A connection, or rather a greater connection when their skin touched was created. Julian felt a zing of electricity go through him that seemed to short-circuit his thoughts. "You do not wish to tell me something?" Damon studied his face minutely.
No, I don't, because I have some bad news.
Julian answered truthfully with a sigh.
I'm not even sure how to begin.
The other immortals, I do not sense them. Their cities are on lockdown, Damon muttered, as if to himself more than to Julian. And they had not come to Nightvarlen for some time. They would not abandon me unless they were unable to come to my side. What have you heard of their fate?
There was an uprising.
Julian explained.
Some, or maybe even all the immortals, were killed.
He then repeated all he had heard from Sophia Strange. After he was done, long moments ticked by while Damon stared down at him, unblinking. Julian had no idea what he was thinking. Perhaps he had made a mistake telling him all of this when he was still weak. But then Damon was moving again, like normal. "No, immortals do not die," Damon denied. "Not like you are thinking. But perhaps their coils were slain."
Are they reincarnated? Balthazar is said to be Iros reborn.
Julian remarked and immediately regretted it. Complimenting the vampire lord seemed to raise Damon's ire.
Not that I think this, but...
"He thinks this," Damon grunted in mirthless amusement. "He dreams of it, I am sure."
He's pretty powerful. Not as powerful as you, but he was able to save everybody here from a crazy master and has survived in exile, so he's got something going on for sure.
Julian pointed out, not sure why he was defending Balthazar so much. Maybe it was because he was Christian's master, and that meant Damon and him needed to get along. "He killed his master." Damon's eyebrows rose.
It was warranted. The guy was hurting everyone in his house, beating them, starving them. I'm certain that Balthazar is telling the truth about that. Considering that others came with him into exile instead of staying in Everdark, sounds like he can generate some loyalty.
Damon's brow clouded. He must be... No, his master must have simply been weak. I do not believe... But the Vampire King looked thoughtful, and not so inclined to judge Balthazar badly at that moment anyways.
I just hope that Balthazar doesn't speak a lot near him.
Julian thought.
That might wipe away all the good I just did. Hey, I'm going to quickly shower, and then we can get you more blood. If you want to lay down again for a moment.
Before Julian could finish his sentence, Damon was striding towards the bathroom door. "There is a bathing area here."
Yeah.
Julian had to practically jog to keep up with him.
Let me turn on the lights.
"No need. There are candles."
Yeah, but...
The candles suddenly burst into flame. They were placed strategically around the bathroom and gave off plenty of light to cast the large room in a golden glow. Julian wasn't surprised to see that the room was plush. Balthazar seemed like the kind of person to have the best of everything. He also seemed as if he enjoyed being incredibly clean. There was a walk-in shower with rain showerhead, but also jets on every wall but the one made of glass. There was also a huge claw-footed tub. There was a vast vanity, lined with colognes and lotions, with a seashell-shaped sink set into the very porcelain. Julian set the shirt and pants there. There was also a toilet and separate bidet.
So vampires do go to the bathroom. Wow. Okay. Did not expect that. Or maybe this is for his human guests.
Damon was staring at the toilet and bidet with interest. Julian stepped over to him.
Those are used for, when you go to the bathroom.
Realizing that likely meant nothing to Damon as it was a euphemism, he explained haltingly,
Humans, you know that they excrete waste, and, these are to remove the waste from the home to the sewer system. This one here?
He gestured to the bidet.
Helps to, clean their, excreting parts.
Yes. This is a similar system to what we have.
Really? There are toilets in Nightvallen?
Damon did not answer. Instead, he pushed the metal handle for the toilet and watched the water swirl down the bottom. He did it again, and again, and again. Julian was reminded of a cat as Damon's eyes flickered along with the water.
It flushes into the sewers. See?
Julian dropped a piece of toilet paper into the water and both of them watched as it swirled away. Damon grabbed one of the cut glass bottles of cologne and was about to drop that into the toilet when Julian quickly took it from him.
Don't do that. It would get stuck and water would overflow. It just wouldn't be good.
He finished when Damon continued to look at him without blinking. Do you suppose losing that cologne would displease Balthazar? There was a curious little glint in Damon's eye that made Julian nervous.
It would, and that's why we're not going to mess with his stuff.
Julian replied firmly. He set the bottle back where Damon had taken it from. Damon shrugged, as if it didn't matter. He then shocked Julian by pulling off the tank cover of the toilet.
Whoa, what are you doing now?
Julian tried to get him to put it down, but that was unsuccessful. Damon flushed the toilet again and watched as the water in the tank drained into the bowl. The Vampire King mentally grunted and replaced the tank cover, satisfied that he understood how it worked, at least in part. He then pressed the button on the bidet that sent a stream of water shooting up into the air. One would sit on this, I take it?
Yep.
Quite ingenious.
You think bathrooms are cool. I can't wait to show you computers and all the rest.
Julian suddenly realized that Damon had a mountain of things to learn. From modern plumbing, to cars, to planes, to the internet, how would the Vampire King react to a world that was nothing like the one he'd left? His curiosity was a good thing. It indicated an elasticity of mind. He also wasn't afraid of anything. In fact, Damon was now over by the sink. Damon turned the handles and watched as hot and cold water sprayed into the seashell-shaped sink. Before Julian had a chance to even move, the Vampire King was checking out the glass-enclosed shower. The bathtub had barely warranted a glance, probably because he recognized what it was. He was opening the shower door, stepping inside, and reaching for the faucet handles again before Julian saved him from being sprayed in the face.
Hey, do you want to get wet? The water will come out of there, and there.
He pointed to the nozzles. Damon stepped out of the shower and watched as Julian adjusted all the knobs, and water spurted out everywhere. He got the sleeve of his shirt wet, but it didn't matter, because he was already going to change out of this one anyways. He tested the water with his fingers and adjusted it until it was the right temperature. At least, what he liked anyways.
How about if I shower first, and then if you'd like to try it, you can.
Why do we not bathe together? The next section of the podcast has been edited out to keep it suitable for a general audience. To get the full version, either subscribe to Wraith Rain as a member or buy the audiobook from the Wraith Rain shop. The Everdark podcast by Ex Aratare is performed by Edward Fox, Adam Riley, Jay Thellis, Bruno Devant, Kelly Michaels, and Hannah Hart, and Liz Gentle as Seer. Edited by Matthew Prince. Continuity by Adriel Wiggins. Everdark is produced by Wraith Rain Publishing in association with Her Grace Reads Studios. Copyright 2022 by Wraith Rain Publishing.
Guys, I just want to give you a heads up that this chapter has been edited. It contains sexy stuff that cannot be on the public podcast that runs on YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all of that. The complete episode with all that sexiness in it is in both the audiobook version, which you can purchase from the Wraith Rain shop, and it's in the private member podcast feed, which has the chapters uploaded to stream right from a page on the membership site. So if you sign up to be a Wraith Rain member, you can stream this chapter and a heck of a lot more, and it's all unedited. Or if you purchase the audiobook, you get the full audiobook, nothing edited. And as the actor for Julian and Christian says,
And let me tell you, it is worth it to get past the paywall. Those scenes are steamy.
Yes. Excellent. Excellent.
I really enjoy reading them. I really do.
Last time on Everdark, Damon discovers the wonders of indoor plumbing. He and Julian bathe together, but Julian refuses to feed, as he knows Damon requires blood first. Christian and Balthazar have gone to the Acolyte's house on the property to get more blood for Damon, but a woman from Christian's past has stopped them in their tracks. Everdark, Episode 18, First Kiss. Laura, please rise. You're making my fledgling very uncomfortable, Balthazar murmured, as he urged the acolyte to her feet. Christian had gone still in that way of his that indicated that he wanted to physically take himself out of the equation. Balthazar was in the very early stages of learning his fledgling's true personality. But one thing was becoming very clear to Balthazar wasn't that Christian felt little, but felt too much. Christian resorted to logic because his emotions were simply too much for him. It was a way to distance himself from what was happening. When people or things were out of place, Christian felt that on a deep, empathetic level. Like Laura being here and bowing. That was unnerving his very intelligent, emotional fledgling. And he would put a stop to it. She jumped up with alacrity, which didn't surprise Balthazar. She was always eager to please him most of all. Seeing Christian had thrown her too.
Oh, I'm sorry. So sorry. I didn't mean to address him so informally and...
It's okay, Laura. I'm glad you did,
Christian said stiffly. But he tried smiling along with it, which Balthazar almost found painful in and of itself.
There's no need to call me master or whatever. That'd be weird. Christian's fine. We were schoolmates after all.
Laura was biting her lower lip through Christian's attempt to put her at ease and on the same level. Christian didn't understand, but the formalities were important to the acolytes. Breeding too much familiarity caused hopes to rise. Balthazar had found that out himself. In fact, he had relearned that lesson not all that long ago.
Quite, if that's what you wish, Christian,
she said awkwardly. She cast about a little and then remembered how she was to behave with them.
Are you here to feed, company, or both? I know that Ray is missing you very much, Master Balthazar.
Balthazar grimaced before he smoothed his face into one of blandness again. Ray was one of those misplaced hopes. He was certain that all of the acolytes had already heard that he had taken a fledgling. Ray, above all, would be aware of it. Ray had hopes that he would be taken. Balthazar had toyed with the idea at the beginning. Now that he had Christian, he couldn't imagine bringing in Ray. While Laura did not catch his reaction, his very clever fledgling did. Christian raised an eyebrow. He gave a brief shake of his head, an indication that they would discuss it later. Or not at all. That would be best. Not at all. I will have to deal with Ray. He cannot stay here. It may be best if he is relieved of his memories of this place and me altogether. No, Laura. I think I'd like Sheila to come join us in the deep suite, he answered smoothly, even as his mind went to unhappy places. He liked Ray, but an unhappy acolyte could poison others with unhappiness. It was best that it did not happen. Unlike Ray, Sheila was steady and had no desire to become a vampire. She would be a non-sexual, comforting presence in the room with him and Christian. Laura did a little curtsy.
I'll send up water and wine. Anything else?
He shook his head. And don't worry about taking us there. I'll show Christian the way. Laura did another little curtsy, quickly turned on her heels and headed into the house. Balthazar put a guiding hand on Christian's lower back. He felt the muscles beneath his palm go tense, but then quickly relaxed. While he would respect Christian's need for boundaries, they had to be able to touch one another.
What are we doing? I thought we were getting humans set up for Damon to feed from.
There was a very cute frown on Christian's lips. Balthazar knew he should not find that frown cute. Christian would not like it, but it was nonetheless. We will. But first, I need to feed you, and it's best I feed myself first, Balthazar said, as he directed Christian towards a set of sweeping mahogany stairs that led to the second floor. And this will be a valuable lesson. You'll get to see how I feed from humans.
Will I get to feed from Sheila too then?
Balthazar shook his head and sighed. You know very well you will not be allowed to. You feed from me, and me alone.
Of course. I know that. I just...
Want your freedom as soon as possible? Yes, that was bitterness in his tone. But Christian surprised him by shaking his head.
No, I just want to make sure we have as many options as possible in case we're separated for some reason.
We are not going to be separated for any reason. Balthazar hadn't intended his tone to be so sharp, but the very thought of Christian being taken from him was intolerable. Yet Christian wasn't about to simply allow the subject to drop.
But Damon is now here. We're being hunted by this order. We don't know what could...
We will not be separated, Balthazar repeated. Christian was correct about what all could go wrong, but Balthazar refused to have any of it right now. Worrying about such a slim possibility is not useful, Christian.
I wasn't worried. Not in the way you're assuming. I was just considering all angles. I'm sorry I upset you. I like to be prepared. When Julian and I go on missions, we consider everything that could happen and then go a step beyond that.
Christian explained. Doesn't it distress you even a little to think of being separated from me? He knew he should not have asked that as soon as the words left his mouth. He sounded needy. It was quite ridiculous for him, who had been called a cad too many times to count, was now pathetically pawing at Christian's pant leg. Christian's lips opened, shut again. Finally he said,
I was going to brain Damon with a lamp to save you.
Balthazar let out a laugh. While appreciated, what does that have to do with anything?
It shows that my feelings towards you are growing in a positive direction.
Christian offered. Ah, lamp bashing. A sign of impending affection.
You don't think I'm moving fast enough towards liking you? You want me to swoon over you, but I bet you grow bored with people who do that anyways.
Christian swept a hand through the air. I don't. He thought of Ray. Was it true? Did he grow bored quickly? No, it was just that Ray was not the one, but Christian was.
Then what was that look you got on your face when Laura mentioned this Ray person?
Christian had paused halfway up the staircase. Ray is another matter, as is having Laura call you by your first name. Balthazar tried to get them moving again. Christian imitated a stump.
What are you talking about?
Balthazar glanced around to see if anyone was near. Then he listened for familiar heartbeats. None. We shouldn't discuss this here, but I will say that there is a balance between vampire and acolyte. And if you break those, then expectations can be set that are very difficult to erase. Actually, it's easy to erase them, considering we're Iris, but it causes upset.
Well, I don't understand. You're saying that having Laura call me Christian instead of Master is the same as whatever happened between you and Ray?
Eyebrows crawled into Christian's hairline. I'm saying that large things start small. Come on, upstairs. Enough stalling. I can hear your stomach grumbling from here. Balthazar made a shooing motion toward Christian to urge him up the stairs.
I'm not stalling. What is this deep suite?
Christian asked, still not moving. That's the last question I will answer on the stairs, so enjoy it. The deep suite is the innermost suite in the back of the house, he said. I like it best because it's a calming space.
You like to be calm when you're having sex and feeding?
Christian's eyebrows rose. Balthazar let out a bark of laughter. His fledgling was direct. He should remember that. That's another question, but just for fun, I'll answer it. Yes, I do. The line between sex and violence, feeding and violence is very thin, so I like things to be peaceful. When I was first turned, we killed the humans we fed from more often than not. The killing was part of the experience.
Your master, Rowan Tithe, right? He made you do that, didn't he?
Christian's voice was a bare whisper, but it held a note of horror and sympathy. Yes, he did. His voice was flat. It often went that way when talking about Roan, even if he tried to control it. But he was also of his time. Many of the vampires made during the wars were violent. That's all they knew. He was of that class.
That doesn't excuse...
No, it doesn't. I killed him. I ended him. Because there are limits that I believe must be honored. Many vampires don't feel as I do, Balthazar explained, though he knew that it was hardly an explanation at all. There was so much that Christian didn't know about vampires, so much he might hate. But Balthazar wanted him to fall in love with the night first, so that when he found the ugly parts that he'd survive the blow easier. I have rules, Christian, that we treat the acolytes with respect, that we don't hurt them, if we can help it, that we don't mess with their minds, unless we must.
Then I'm even more glad it was you who turned me.
Christian breathed. More glad? More? For the first time, Christian touched him. Balthazar held very still. It was just a brief brush of fingertips along his right cheek, brief and gone. But it happened. He resisted touching that cheek. It was a sure bet it wouldn't happen again if he did. Christian shifted from foot to foot.
Shouldn't we go to this deep suite?
Balthazar blinked. He'd gotten lost in the moment. Yes. Yes. Let's do that.
Hey guys, if you're thinking of subscribing to wraithrain.com just for the uncut podcast chapters, there's so much more to the membership. Most of what I do are written stories. So since 2010, I've had my own serial subscription site. I have 3 or 4 stories that are currently running, and I update those with 3 or 4 chapters every month a piece. In fact, the sequel to Everdark is in one of the stories I'm updating right now. Once a story is done, it's left on the site as part of the archive. There are over 12 years of completed serials between 150,000 words for a short one and over 500,000 words for a longer one like Everdark. I hope you check it out. Remember, you can get the complete, uncut, unedited, full sexy times Everdark chapters if you are a member of Wraith Rain.
They walked down a hallway to a set of double doors that led into the deep suite. Balthazar could sense over 6 vampire denizens in the house being fed, or having sex, or doing some combination of both. The earthy scent of musk, mixed with the coppery-rich scent of blood, was tantalizing and dangerous. He quickly reached over and opened the doors. Like he had when they'd entered the house, Balthazar allowed Christian to precede him. His fledgling stepped into the suite. The walls were a cool, light blue called Dream. He'd thought the paint name stupid, but whenever he rested in this suite, he did have good dreams. Oddly, they were dreams of walking by the sea, holding onto someone's hand, smiling, feeling complete. He never saw the person's face. He knew it was a man, but that was all. Balthazar came inside and closed the doors behind them as Christian stood in the middle of the center room of the suite, taking in the space. The floor was polished to a high gloss. There was a round rug with an intricate design in blues and grays. There were no windows. Glass could break. The light in the room mimicked dusk or dawn. Directly ahead of them was a large sofa with deep cushions that would allow 2 people to lay down side by side. There were 2 overly large love seats facing the sofa and several low coffee tables of white stone. Intricate bonsai trees dotted the room, bringing the outside in. There were abstract paintings on the wall, a stripe of red, a slash of blue, a faded peach like the sunrise he'd just seen. To the right was the door to a vast bedroom with a 4-poster bed in similar colors. To the left was a bathroom, just as large as the bedroom. A shower that could fit 6. It was a comfortable space.
It is calming,
Christian said as he slowly turned to face Balthazar.
Reminds me of a mixture of a high-end spa and a house of ill repute.
Another bark of laughter exited his lips. Been to many houses of ill repute, have you, Christian? High color appeared on Christian's cheeks. But he answered,
Not many. Okay, not any. It's what I imagine one would look like. I can smell sex. His enhanced senses are quite keen. And I can even hear the slap of skin and, grunts.
Balthazar's lips twitched, but he tried not to smile. His little scientist was learning. Yes, quite.
Have you been in many houses of ill repute?
Christian looked up at him through his dark lashes. Those lashes should have been criminal. They were so effective in distracting him. Oh, God, yes. Of course, he answered. Christian's eyes widened.
Truly?
Back in my day, there was to be no sex before marriage. Not with the woman you were to marry in your class, and certainly not with the lads that attracted me. He smoothed his hands down his front.
But if you went to a whorehouse, then you were having sex before marriage. But I suppose it didn't count.
Christian answered his own question. Exactly. What you did in those places was simply not discussed if you were a young man with blue blood and enough coin to silence mouths. He shrugged. It was a different time. Now there's no need for it. People are open to most anything.
How do you make acolytes? How do you decide who's going to be one? I mean, Laura? I remember her as a nice, if nondescript girl in high school.
Christian's eyes were bright with interest.
How do you know if someone will keep your secret, rather than running to the media? The Iros can control minds, but not every vampire can do that, right?
Every vampire can control human minds to a certain extent. It's called seduction. But yes, it is much easier for an Iros to make an offer to a human than, let's say, a Kali. Though the Kali would likely just kill the human and reanimate their corpse.
Reanimate?
He waved the inevitable question away. That's going too far afield. I told you about the powers that each bloodline has. That's theirs. But the thing is that we can take more chances with the people we turn to our side than the others. We can wipe the minds of those who end up not working out. Like Ray.
But is there something that you see in that person? Clearly you don't take in everyone.
Christian pointed out. Balthazar nodded. You're right. We mostly pick those in power, like politicians or the wealthy. We also target those professions that we need, like doctors and lawyers and police officers. We also heavily influence the military. Don't want them going after us in the end. Not that most vampires couldn't just retreat to the Everdark and strike out for humans when needed. But still, better to nip that in the bud.
Laura isn't any of those things. She's normal. Maybe even boring.
Christian said with a curl of his lip. True. You see then, there are the acolytes we choose because their personalities indicate they would be willing to be fed from, Balthazar said and watched Christian's reaction. A frown line appeared on Christian's forehead, and he wasn't surprised. This would be difficult for someone like Christian, who restricted who touched him or even looked at him, might not be able to put himself into these types of acolytes' headspaces.
They want to be fed from?
Christian clarified. They love it. They want to surrender, or be made to surrender, he said. Christian scrubbed his face with those elegant hands.
Is there always sex with feeding?
That's a very good question. Why don't we sit down and talk about it? He gestured to the sofa. Christian looked at the sofa for a very long time. He went to one of the chairs and settled himself there. Balthazar chuckled, but went to sit himself on the sofa. You are going to have to come near me to feed, fledgling, he said as he settled himself down, one arm stretched over the sofa back and his legs indolently crossed.
I will when the time comes.
Christian regarded him coolly.
So you were going to tell me about feeding and sex?
I'd rather show you.
I'm sure you would.
Christian's lips almost twitched into a smile. Vampires are all about pleasure. So yes, feeding and sex are intertwined. Feeding and violence are too, as I said before, Balthazar answered. Feeding from me, you won't be violent against your master, will help you control your instinct later with others.
Do you expect sex when I feed from you?
To the point. I wouldn't mind it, Balthazar answered truthfully, seeing no reaction from Christian, which made him think he should say more himself. Balthazar uncrossed and recrossed his legs before expanding. I don't expect anything. I will feed you no matter if you ever let me touch you in any other way. You are my fledgling. The question is really, do you want to? Christian swallowed. But nothing will happen unless you want it to happen, Balthazar assured him. I take no pleasure in forcing myself on anyone, and I'll try not to be offended that you're worried about that.
I don't know you,
Christian answered softly. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees.
You don't seem like the type, but seeming and being are two different things.
Have you? Balthazar paused. He wasn't sure how to ask this, or if he should. He wanted to know if Christian had been attacked. He knew that nothing had happened to the young man since he started watching over him, but that was only for the past 8 years. Things could have happened before that. Have you had aggressive people in your life? He nearly rolled his eyes. Christian was direct, but he couldn't quite make himself ask something so boldly.
You're asking if I have personal reasons to distrust men?
This was as indirect as Christian had ever been. Yes.
I don't trust anyone,
Christian answered. That was not an answer, but I will leave it for now. I will earn your trust, Christian, Balthazar promised. Christian nodded, which showed neither belief nor disbelief.
So will you have sex with Sheila?
No, he laughed quietly.
Why not?
Christian's eyes narrowed. She's a grandmotherly type, he answered.
She's old?
She's 67, he answered. Christian blinked.
I had this idea that you would only feed from nubile young men.
Balthazar snorted. I do enjoy those types, for sure. But don't you like it when your mother makes you a meal? Isn't it comforting?
My mother is not my meal.
Christian was giving him that very narrow-eyed stare again. He nodded. No, but Sheila is loving, kind, gentle, tender, and she's been doing this a long time for us. She knows what she's doing, so that will be a good thing for you.
You want to sanitize the vampire world for me. Why?
I'm not sanitizing it. I'm carefully curating it, just at first. Believe me, you'll see much in a short time, but you're just beginning and things should be simpler, he told Christian. In this age, people moved so quickly. Christian was a child of change. He was used to getting everything now. It was hard to explain, or maybe hard for him to understand, that he had eternity. His fledgling was quiet for a moment, arms crossed over his chest and eyes thoughtful. He nibbled his lower lip and glanced at Balthazar, and then away, then back again. Finally, Christian said,
You were willing to feed both Julian and me before you fed yourself. Can I feed from you for a moment now?
Balthazar blinked. Yes, of course, if you wish.
Just a little. I want to focus, and I can't. My thoughts are muddy.
Christian admitted. I'm amazed at your strength so far. Balthazar's heart began to race, but he held himself very, very still again. Do you want me to come to you, or?
I'll come to you.
In order to stay within YouTube community guidelines, the next section of the podcast has been edited. To get the full version, either subscribe to Wraith Rain as a member, or buy the audiobook from the Wraith Rain shop. The Everdark podcast by Ex Aratare is performed by Edward Fox, Adam Riley, Jay Thillis, Bruno Devant, Kelly Michaels, and Hannah Hart, with Liz Gentle as Seer. Edited by Matthew Prince, continuity by Adrielle Wiggins. Everdark is produced by Wraith Rain Publishing in association with Her Grace Reed Studios. Copyright 2022 by Wraith Rain Publishing. Last time on Everdark, Christian and Balthazar share a moment before being rudely interrupted. We now turn back to Damon and Julian, who have left the shower and intend to help themselves to what House Ravenscroft has to offer. Everdark, Episode 19, The Art of Evasion. The next section of the podcast has been abridged. Julian was in Balthazar's closet, choosing his outfit from the Iros's clothing, which displeased Damon. But Julian had explained that he had no choice.
My own clothes are at my place.
Julian had said.
I want to go back there, but with the Order and who knows who else is hunting us, I don't think that's a good plan. At least, not for now.
If they come to harm you, I will send them to their second and final deaths, Damon had replied without hesitation, because, of course, that would be exactly what he would do, even faster than he had killed the other two in Nightvarlen. But his simple statement had caused no end of consternation in his fledgling, who had frozen at his words, only then to spring into frantic action. He'd come towards Damon and gripped his biceps. His gaze was intense. It gave Damon a chance to look carefully at Julian's eyes. He was pleased to see they held a purple cast, close to his red ones, different from the other vampire's silver orbs. It was yet one more thing to show that Julian was his fledgling, had his blood, and was not common.
You can't just go around killing people.
Julian informed him with all due seriousness.
The world is different now. And anyways, killing is wrong. That's the first point.
This Damon found most amusing, but he held his tongue. Killing was sometimes very right, but from his surface perusal of Julian's mind, this age, for his fledgling at least, was incredibly peaceful. Violence was something that was done for entertainment. It was not real. Julian was much more interested in understanding someone's point of view than gutting them.
Second, these are your people, and they've been misled. So killing them is doubly wrong, and won't win you friends.
Julian continued. This had some merit. It appeared that the vampires had been led astray. The immortals may have violated his laws while he slept, creating chaos and dysfunction in this world. He would be looking into this and fixing what was broken. It disturbed him that he could not sense the other immortals. Death was not a possibility, not in the way that Julian understood it. Was he so weak that he was cut off from them? Or were they so damaged that they could not reach back? Or there was the possibility that they were simply hiding. He did not know what disturbed him more.
Third,
Julian further continued.
Clothes are not worthy of killing anyone over, even if it means that I have to wear Balthazar's clothes. Besides, he's fussy and territorial. I think wearing his stuff might annoy him. You like doing that?
The last had been said with a grin. His activities with the cologne and the toilet had not gone unnoticed. Damon snorted. Wearing his things makes you smell like him. It displeases me.
Well, you're going to have to be displeased. In fact, you might need to wear some of his things yourself. Though
Julian frowned as he measured Damon with his eyes.
I don't know if they'd fit you. Maybe some of Arceus' stuff would be big enough. Though I guess what you have on now will do, since we're just going to be hanging out inside the house.
Damon looked down at his bare chest, black leather trousers and thigh-high leather boots. His wolf's fur coat was on the bed. What is wrong with what I'm wearing? It was Julian's turn to snort.
The fact that you have to ask tells me that you have no idea what the current styles are.
Damon frowned. He picked up the wolf's fur coat and slipped it on. My style is eternal. Julian really laughed then, which had him smiling too. Julian's laughter had the immediate effect of warming.
Yeah, it is. It screams Vampire King, or member of a really interesting rock band.
Julian chuckled.
From what I saw your wardrobe in the Everdark, we'll definitely have to buy you some clothes so you'll fit in here.
We cannot go back to Nightvarlen for some time. Damon tried not to sound sad about that. Coming for Julian was nothing he would ever regret. Concerned lines appeared on Julian's forehead.
Why? I mean, I'm guessing it would take too much energy for you to create a doorway again, like you did to get here. But what about the library? Can't we use the way Christian and I got in?
Yes, but my body needs time to stabilize. One place or the other, not passing between both continuously, he explained. Julian thought about this for a moment, but then nodded, understanding it not completely, but enough.
Okay, so we definitely don't go out looking for clothes or things we don't really need. Not until you're much stronger.
Julian frowned then.
Before you came, I was really weak. I felt like I couldn't even get up from the bed. But you haven't fed me, and I feel okay now. Good, even. Why is that?
My presence alone has given you strength. But I must feed you soon, or you will start to regress again. Damon guessed. If Julian was like other fledglings, that would be the case. But Julian was singular. No one knew how he would react. And what if taking in more of my blood harms him? But Damon didn't allow himself to think about that too long or seriously. He would feed his fledgling. No one else would have that honor.
Oh, okay, cool. We need to keep a low profile and not endanger House Ravenscroft in any case. So staying here and feeding is the plan.
Julian answered. Did Balthazar truly convince a whole room full of vampires to freeze and then wipe their minds? He asked again. Julian had informed him of everything that had occurred since their connection had been severed. He'd thought that Julian had died when that happened, but clearly not. Thinking of Julian dying made him feel strangely fragile. Shudders ran through him, and his mind seemed to want to freeze at it. He pushed it away from himself. Julian was here. Julian was his. Those things would remain. He willed it. As to why their mental link had failed when Julian went into Siren territory, he believed now that it was because the other immortals had locked their worlds down, which partially kept him out, though Julian had still been able to pass into the blood den. He would have to grow stronger to reach out to them if they were still on this plane, or simply rip the locks off if they were not.
Yeah, it was pretty epic,
Julian said, and there was awe in his eyes. I suppose I should be grateful that his show of power made you think him worthy of drinking from, Damon finally answered. Julian grinned and shook his head.
Well, it's not connecting two worlds or becoming an army of wolves, but I think it was impressive nonetheless.
Damon's lips curled into a smile. Yes, but definitely not on the same level.
No, but you've got to give him credit. Actually, I think you do. You're surprised that Balthazar could do that.
Julian pointed out. Damon grimaced slightly. I can tell he is young. It is unusual. He interests me on a very superficial level.
You shouldn't be mad at him. He didn't really believe in you. Maybe still doesn't. Not yet anyways. But he helped Christian, and he would have helped me too.
Julian pointed out. Helped himself to you? You wish me to be impressed by the fact that he tried to steal you from me? It shows he has good taste, but little sense. Damon had crossed his arms over his chest defensively, and upon realizing this, he dropped them to his sides. I did not kill him. That is enough of a reward.
You and the killing.
Julian shook his head.
I would have thought that living forever would have made you respect life more. You must love to live.
I do, but I am a predator. Life is what I feed upon. Life is what I need to keep going. Other people's lives. You will understand that soon too, I think. Damon had told him. Julian didn't look convinced, but said,
Maybe. I don't know that I want to feel that way. Or at least not be so cavalier about it.
We shall see.
All set to go, I think.
Julian's voice stirred him from his reverie. He was disappointed to see that all that supple, silky skin was covered up again, and he'd missed seeing the last of it disappear as he'd ruminated on their earlier conversation. Julian seemed to favor loose, baggy clothing that hid his muscular form in drab colors. Not that Julian wasn't beautiful in even these strange, utilitarian outfits. He was. It was just that he should be seen in silk, fur, and leather to be truly arrayed properly. Currently, Julian was wearing some black cotton pants with a drawstring waist and a long-sleeved, dune-colored shirt. He'd also grabbed a pair of shoes that were slip-ons in an almost matching color to the shirt. He was running his fingers through his still damp hair to arrange it. Damon stepped forward and knocked his hands away gently so that he could rearrange the strands.
Making a mess of it, was I?
Julian asked with a rather puckish smile. You take no pride in your beauty. That was a statement more than a question.
I guess. It's never held me back.
Julian shrugged. I suppose I should be grateful. You would have already had a suitor if you had presented yourself in a truly optimal light, Damon murmured. Julian's eyebrows rose up and a smile twitched his lips.
I've had suitors. Tons of suitors. I'm just not dating anyone right now because I don't want to. But I could get someone, even without brushing my hair.
Damon's eyes narrowed. I see.
I bet you've had tons of suitors.
Julian stood still while Damon carded his fingers through those soft, dark strands. Of course.
Of course.
Julian laughed again, delighted. Do you not think I am worthy of such? He imitated a front with a stiffening spine and raised eyebrow. Though Julian could not read his thoughts fully, the young man knew he was teasing.
Oh, undoubtedly. Actually, I'm sure you have.
He shifted uncomfortably.
Which makes me want to ask, does the fledgling master relationship mean we're exclusive to one another?
Damon sifted through Julian's mind to understand the context he was truly speaking of. Julian's thoughts were fascinating. They showed him two bodies intertwined, then the symbol of rings, then two lights becoming one. Images of his parents floated through his mind, memories of them laughing, of them holding one another, of how his father would simply rest his head against his mother's, and they would stay that way, silent yet serene for long moments. Soulmates.
What?
Julian hadn't heard him fully. Those were the words, the idea that Julian had about exclusivity. Some have been exclusive, Damon answered carefully. Some have not.
So it's not some automatic thing, which is good. I was just wondering. I feel
Julian licked his upper lip as he debated saying what he was feeling.
connected to you. It's what I imagined my parents felt.
But he did not say that or send that to Damon consciously.
It's just an interesting feeling.
Conflicting, too. Damon's right eyebrow rose. A flustered movement of Julian's left hand had Damon gently clasping it.
You shouldn't do that.
Julian said with a slight frown upon plush lips. Do what?
Read more of my thoughts than I want you to.
And with a faint smile, he added,
And I know you know how much I want read.
I do. Sometimes. Other times it seems you both do and do not want me to delve deeper. Damon drew his thumb along the hand he still held.
Well, like I said, I'm glad that it's not automatic. We need to get to know one another, and kisses in the shower notwithstanding,
Another flash of a smile.
we're practically strangers to one another.
And that matters. Julian sent him a sharp look.
Doesn't it matter to you? Or are you just ready to jump feet first into whatever this is?
What did he feel? Only one single line came to him, and he sent it. You are mine. Damon then turned away from Julian and headed to the door of the bedroom. He knew that wasn't an answer, and that was likely going to cause the very independent Julian to squawk. But he couldn't answer more than that. His feelings were complex. He had not sorted them out yet. The truth was that the thought of Julian being with anyone else made him see red. He'd never been possessive of his lovers before. It made little sense to do so when eternity and an infinite number of experiences beckoned. There were those who were always by one's side, but variety and interests were to be pursued. But with Julian, things were different. He needed time to figure out that difference.
You know, writing is hard and lonely. I'm more a storyteller who loves nothing better than interacting with the audience. This is why I write serially, and members have the ability to comment on the chapters as soon as I post them. So no waiting for an entire book to be done before I know what you guys think. In case you didn't know, I run my own serial website for gay action and adventure romance since 2010. And the reason I've done this as my focus, rather than writing traditional books, is because I get to talk to you guys. I have always loved interactive storytelling like Dungeons and Dragons, and this has been my way of interacting with my readers. Now, there are live streams. I've been reading Empire of Stars on stream at least once a month. And since Everdark started, I've been doing live streams with a cast member when they're available. On YouTube, I've made separate playlists for Empire of Stars chapters and Everdark cast streams, and I'll put the links to those in the notes.
Julian's footsteps as he jogged up behind him, and the not unexpected question came quickly.
What does that mean?
I need to eat. A strangled laugh came from Julian.
Okay. Evidently we are not talking about this subject. Or at least you aren't talking. But since I have a say in this, why don't I tell you what I think? What I want. At least for now.
Damon's steps as he strode down the hallway towards the scent of fresh blood slightly hitched. What if Julian said that he didn't want to be exclusive? What if he said he did not want more than the kiss they'd had in the shower? What if... Damon stopped abruptly in the middle of the hallway and spun around to face his fledgling, who nearly barreled into him, but his vampire reflexes caught him at the last moment from doing so.
Are you okay?
Julian asked, tilting his head to the side. You are having more of an effect on me than I realized. Damon slowly studied Julian's hair, the thick hair, the lush lashes that would have made him pretty except for the masculine beard, the strong jaw, the swan-like neck, the thud of that heart he already had memorized like it was his own.
How so?
Another frown. Julian was frowning much too much for his liking. Your quick, mortal thinking is trying to rush me into discussing something that neither of us is prepared to answer at this time. Damon paused and considered his fledgling further. The next section of the podcast has been abridged. Would you have me command you to be only mine? If I say this, as your master, as your king, it means something more than you realize. You think this is just a conversation between us, but it is not. And it was not a conversation that he'd ever really expected to have. The fledglings he'd tried to make before had died so terribly. He'd kept himself apart from them during the whole process. But with Julian had been inside of him from the beginning, despite his best efforts to stay away. Julian challenged his need to protect himself from the pain of separation with the equally powerful duty of honor. Those potential fledglings that had come to him before had always done so with awe and gratitude. He was the first among equals, the king. That was not how he and Julian had met. They had met as two people, two individuals. Julian saw him as powerful, but there was no worship there. Julian saw them as equals. So he was not at all surprised when Julian said,
I don't believe in masters or kings, Damon. You're a person to me, an individual, not an institution. I do what I want. I do what's best for me. And you. Of course, you, too.
He brushed his fingers down Julian's cheek. The fact that you say this tells me that you truly do not understand. I am more than just an immortal. I am the king, and you are my fledgling, my one, and perhaps only one, forever.
Do you want other fledglings?
Julian's eyes burned red for a moment. Jealousy was not just in Damon's breast, evidently. This shouldn't please him too much, but it did. His fledgling's emotions were quick too, like a lit match. He is not yet sure of me. Can I blame him? But he said only, handling one of you is a trial. I cannot imagine more. But Julian kept that hard, red stare on him, so he went on, You are the only one that has ever survived. I do not know why, but I think it is fate. I would not press fate for another gift such as you.
But you want another fledgling?
Julian pushed. He feathered his hands through the hair at the back of Julian's head. So soft. I want only you. The next section of the podcast has been edited.
It's like a roller coaster being with you, Damon. I feel so out of control.
Julian's mouth formed a pained smile.
Sometimes that's good, you know? When you just let go and jump off that cliff. Sometimes there's a pool of clear water below you, but other times there are jagged rocks. Not knowing it is part of the thrill that keeps me jumping. But this, it feels like you have my heart in your hands, even though...
He shook his head and stepped back from Damon. The slight physical distance between them was agony. Damon reached for Julian, but the young man slid out of reach. He shook his head again.
Damon, when you touch me, everything in my head short circuits. I want to be clear for this conversation.
Julian explained. There can be no conversation.
Why?
Julian's head snapped up, staring at him again with the flaring red eyes.
Does what I want not matter?
It matters. It matters very much. But, like you, I am out of control. I am riding on this need to just... His hand that was still outstretched towards Julian curled into a fist. You are mine. I am yours. And this is dangerous. Julian's voice was but a whisper.
Why dangerous?
Because my instincts are urging me to take you away from everyone and everything, to destroy any who would come near you. You think killing is wrong. Killing is what I do. And you would see it. Rivers of blood. Damon shuddered and stopped. That had happened before, when he'd lost control, after a beloved potential fledgling had died and he had turned everything to a red mist. Julian's expression wasn't horrified. Not exactly. It was a mixture which was reflected in his next words.
I don't know whether to feel treasured or scared as hell.
Both. Damon dropped his hand to his side. You are brave and independent. I would not change that in you. Not the better part of me, anyways. But the other part? The other part wants to keep you for myself and only myself. Julian crossed his arms over his chest.
Funny. I feel the same way about you. Only I wouldn't be killing people to make that happen. Only kicking things. Punching walls, maybe.
And the moment he said it, Damon found himself laughing out loud, which had a startling effect on both of them. Julian jerked back and then grinned. Damon had not heard himself laugh in a long time either.
So you can make noise. I was beginning to wonder. Though why are you laughing?
I can make noise if I wish, and I am laughing because you are so exactly like what I need, but nothing like what I thought you'd be, Damon admitted.
You're just used to being in charge, and so am I. We're both alphas.
Julian grinned at him wider. Alphas? I see. I suppose I would expect no less from my fledgling. He would have to be a leader. Damon leaned towards Julian. But I am in charge between us. He knew that Julian would perk up at the challenge, and he did.
We'll have to see about that.
They turned and began to companionably make their way up the stairs to the first floor, teasing one another about who would be in charge, when Damon's hearing tuned in the voices of other vampires in the house. He put a hand out in front of Julian to stop his forward progress. Both of them listened. A woman was saying,
Arceus, why didn't Balthazar consult us after this person entered our home? I understand that he is distracted by his new fledgling, but this is madness.
This person is our king.
Arceus was explaining patiently, but his tone indicated that he had been saying this repeatedly.
That's insane!
A high, boyish voice cried out.
Damon is a myth. I'm sorry, Arceus, but I think your faith is blinding you to what has to be a fraud.
Worse than fraud.
The woman got in.
The Order clearly has some beef with this person. We don't need that kind of attention. Our house has just now started to establish itself. All of that could be lost by taking in this con man.
Why are you so certain this is false?
Arceus's tone was even, the tone of a person used to being doubted, but knowing he knew the truth nonetheless.
You've not even met him. Nothing he says or does will convince us that he's really King Damon.
The boy answered for her. Damon's eyes narrowed. Nothing would convince them, would it? Nothing at all? He would make them eat those words. Julian's hand was suddenly gripping his shoulder. He turned to his fledgling. Julian's expression was firm as he said,
No killing, Damon. Remember that they are our allies.
Do not worry, my fledgling. Damon smiled mirthlessly. I would not be able to enjoy them admitting how very wrong they were to doubt me if I killed them. He swept up the stairs to meet the vampires who doubted his existence. Join us next time for episode 20.
Do you want to join the next live stream? The easiest way is to subscribe to the Wraith Rain YouTube channel. You'll see the community posts, shorts, announcement videos, and get notifications when we go live. You can also join my good old-fashioned mailing list, and you'll get an email reminder within 24 hours with links to our YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook channels. Hope to see you on the next one.
The Everdark podcast by Ex Aratare is performed by Edward Fox, Adam Riley, Jay Thillis, Bruno Devant, Kelly Michaels, and Hannah Hart, with Liz Gentle as Seer. Edited by Matthew Prince, continuity by Adrielle Wiggins. Everdark is produced by Wraith Rain Publishing in association with Her Grace Reed Studios. Copyright 2022 by Wraith Rain Publishing. Last on Everdark, Damon is determined to prove he is king. Now we come back to Balthazar and Christian, whose first feeding was interrupted by Ray, an acolyte. Everdark, Episode 20. Respect. Ray, you shouldn't be here, Balthazar said, and while his voice wasn't angry exactly, it was crisp. Christian saw a young man, blonde like him with sky-blue eyes and pouty lips, react to it. Those slender but muscular shoulders curled inwards, and an almost guilty look crossed his fox-like features. But then Ray shook off whatever he was feeling at that tone and allowed his anger to rise again like a phoenix.
He looks like me.
Ray spat as he narrowed his eyes at Christian. Actually, you look like him, Balthazar murmured with a rather guilty glance at Christian. Christian, who was still in the vampire lord's arms, stiffened at that confession. Balthazar had been fantasizing about him with this Ray for who knew how long, and Christian hadn't even known that the vampire lord existed. Christian knew that this fear of being thought of by those who he didn't know was foolish. He and Julian had a very successful web series. Tons of people thought of him, and he didn't know them and likely would never know them.
It's because this reminds me of David watching me, stalking me. That's why Balthazar unnerves me. But he isn't David. He's nothing like him. That he admired me before we met doesn't put them all in the same category. My reaction is not logical. It's atavistic. I will conquer it.
Balthazar slowly drew a hand down Christian's spine to comfort him. But Christian wanted to be free. He pulled back. Balthazar immediately released him. There wasn't the slightest use of that great strength to hold him near, even though he knew that Balthazar was hurt by his drawing back.
Not like David, see? Not gonna hold me against my will. Not gonna... Everything is fine. Fine.
The tightness in Christian's chest eased as he settled himself on the couch on a separate cushion from the vampire lord. He needed space. He needed distance. He needed to calm down and force reason upon his emotions. He found himself licking at the little bit of blood still on his lips from their feeding. The taste actually made him feel better. Actually, it made him feel safe. Ray smirked.
Well, it appears that the only thing similar about us is looks. I've never been so bashful about being seen in an embrace with you, Balthazar. Far more than that. We've fucked in front of an audience dozens of times. I bet he won't even let you hold his hand.
Enough, Ray. Balthazar's voice was ice, and the note of command was in the air as well. Christian recognized it from the blood den. Ray immediately went silent. But more than that, his face went blank. He stood there like an empty-headed doll. Christian's gaze snapped to the vampire lord. Balthazar squeezed the top of his nose and murmured something in what sounded like French. Finally, he lowered his hand, and though he looked as beautiful as ever, he appeared tired and sad. I'm sorry about that, Christian. He shouldn't have been allowed up here, let alone to say such things. I will fix this. I will be gone for a moment. Balthazar stood up. Christian grasped his wrist gently.
What are you going to do?
Without waiting for an answer, he plowed on.
You're going to wipe his mind, aren't you?
That tired and sad look became more apparent on Balthazar's handsome visage. Christian found himself liking the vampire lord a lot for that look. Ray seemed like an arsehole, but that rudeness towards Christian had come from hurt. Still, even if it hadn't, Christian wouldn't have wanted someone's mind to be wiped just because they were a jerk. Yes, Christian, I must do it. Remember those boundaries I talked about between a vampire and an acolyte? I crossed them with Ray because Balthazar's lips flattened, and Christian could tell that the vampire lord didn't want to tell him why, was considering lying, but tossed that away too.
Because he looks like me?
Christian guessed. One of Balthazar's eyebrows raised. Yes, pet, because he looks like you.
You are not calling me pet.
Christian scowled. An impish smile quirked the corners of Balthazar's lips. Oh? I don't know. I rather like.
Seriously, Balthazar, what will happen to Ray?
Christian insisted and lightly squeezed Balthazar's wrist. It was the same wrist he had drunk from, and then, in a fit of madness, had kissed Balthazar afterwards. What had possessed him to do that? But just as he realized that David was the cause of him shying away from Balthazar, his body at least had no problem desiring the vampire lord. It was more honest than his mind was at times. The vampire lord sighed. He will be given false memories of traveling the world for 2 years. His social media has been reflecting this fake life for the whole time he's been here. He'll have lots of experiences and do-gooding on his resume. He will be offered a prestigious job by another of our acolytes in another city very far away from here. He will be happy and content and never know the truth. Christian considered this. Ray was being paid for his time with a good career and pleasant memories. He would never regret losing what he didn't remember.
But it's all a lie. The most important things to ever happen to him, the knowledge that supernatural, immortal beings exist, and the fact that he loved one of them, will be erased.
Christian whispered.
It's terrible.
And necessary. Another sigh and squeeze on the top of his nose. You have to understand, Christian, that not every acolyte can be turned into a vampire. First, it would mean too many of us. Second, not all are suited to eternity. The things that make someone a good acolyte don't translate to being a good vampire. Believe me when I tell you that Ray would never have been turned with or without this display tonight.
Why not?
If it were possible. Balthazar looked more exhausted. His shoulders slumped. We can tell what personality types will thrive as vampires and which will be problematic. Some of the things that made Ray would make him likely to go out of control as a vampire. He leaps before he looks and overshares. He pushes boundaries, not in a good way, but in ways that would break the very rules that keep vampires safe. If he were turned, I am almost certain he would have been put down in the end. Christian stiffened.
Put down? You mean killed?
A nod from Balthazar had Christian staring into those blank, doll-like eyes of Ray.
So, some fake memories and a job are better options.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Christian said finally. Balthazar's brow furrowed. For what? You aren't responsible for this.
For not realizing how hard this is for you. Earlier, I acted like you were being cavalier with people. I can see that's not true now.
Christian admitted.
I can see doing this hurts you.
Balthazar dipped his head back and stared up at the ceiling. You shouldn't feel sorry for me, Christian. This was my fault. I allowed the lines to be crossed because I really wanted you, and Ray was a convenient substitute. Ray is nothing like you, ironically, but he semi-satisfied an itch I had, and now this is the price for it. We lose a good acolyte.
So you really didn't want Celine to hurt Julian or me?
Christian asked. Not that he had disbelieved Balthazar about this earlier, but it was utterly clear to him now how her actions were completely against Balthazar's wishes. God, no. I have no idea why she and Heath did this. Celine's master, Timothy, has disappeared, and Elena is, as you know, unconscious. But there is more here than just two acolytes going beyond what I asked of them, Balthazar answered, and his expression darkened. I have a bad feeling that I've been betrayed. Christian resisted the urge to apologize again. It wasn't logical to do so, yet he found himself not liking to see Balthazar upset.
Likely part of the master-fledgling bond, and that I don't feel compelled in any way to care for him, so maybe I just feel badly for him naturally.
Our house is exiled, Christian. If we cannot trust one another, then there is simply nothing left, Balthazar explained. At that moment, there was the sound of the patter of footsteps coming up the stairs, and a frantic Laura appeared in the doorway. She saw Ray and looked startled at his presence and the blank look on his face. But that clearly wasn't what was bringing her to them and causing her such great distress. What is it, Laura? Balthazar commanded.
There's a fight! A fight in the main house!
She cried. Christian was off the couch. His hearing had suddenly become exquisitely sensitive, and he could hear Julian demanding someone not touch another person.
Damon! Julian!
Christian said.
They're being attacked!
Damn it! Balthazar and he ran out of the room, leaving Laura and Ray behind. He hoped they wouldn't be too late to stop whatever was happening in the main house.
This is a PSA about supporting your favorite small creators. The Wraith Rain team also supports other small creators. We all belong to Patreons or contribute to Kickstarters for independent podcasters, musicians, indie games, personal YouTube shows, and things like that. We know that our money doesn't go to executives. It goes right to the people who create the work that we enjoy. And because we're also small creators, we know that every Patreon subscription, stream donation, and merch sale not only keeps things going in a practical way, but also emotionally. Everyone who gives us money is directly telling us that we're important to them, and it's really inspiring. We want to encourage you to do the same thing. Whoever it is that you really enjoy, if their work adds to your life, entertains, or educates you, consider supporting them somehow if you can, on their Patreons, buying merch, donating on stream, or anything you can think of.
Earlier, Julian had to practically run after Damon. The vampire king swept up the stairs, his long, flowing fur jacket spreading out behind him like a pair of wings. The three vampires that had been speaking about him went silent as soon as Damon appeared. Arceus immediately bowed low, while the other two looked at Damon out of narrowed eyes. One was a young man who looked hardly older than 13, with hair so pale it was almost white. In contrast, the woman beside him had hair as black as a raven's wing, with a matching form-fitting dress and a choker of pearls around her swan-like throat.
My king, Julian, I did not expect you to be here.
Arceus's surprise could not be hidden. That was understandable. He had left them with Damon unconscious on the bed and Julian weak as a kitten. Yet here they both were in good health. Julian's stomach clenched a little with hunger pangs, though. He really needed to eat, or he'd be in a bad state. Damon's head swung towards him, but Julian made a small movement with his hand. He was fine, for now. They didn't have to rush off, though maybe he should have suggested that, considering the looks that the boy and woman were giving them.
Hey, Arceus, we were just heading to get some food.
Julian winced a little at calling people food.
Could you maybe point the way?
The idea of Damon proving to these angry, nettled vampires he was their king suddenly seemed like a very bad idea. Distracting Damon with food was the much better course. Damon inclined his head, and Arceus straightened up from his bow.
Of course. I would be honored to take you to the coach house.
You're going to let them feed on our acolytes?
It was the woman who spoke. She sounded outraged. Arceus kept his tone level and even as he answered her.
Of course, Isabel. These are Balthazar's guests, regardless of what you may be thinking. Balthazar is treating the vampire con artist who killed Heath and Celine like a guest? Has he lost his mind?
It was the boy who spoke.
William?
Arceus's voice was tinged with outrage. His gaze flickered between the white-haired boy and Damon. He knew that these words were meant to offend, and clearly he had no doubt that they would be answered by the Vampire King with violence. Remembering how easily Damon killed, Julian totally agreed with his assessment.
Hold your tongue. You are out of line.
Damon, surprisingly, said and did nothing. After his appearance as a horde of wolves before, Julian had expected him to do something dramatic, or just snap William's neck like a twig and walk on. But he was simply observing everything and everyone. Unlike Arceus, he didn't appear moved at all by William's anger. William stepped over to Damon on slender legs. The boy, for he was a boy, was thin as a rail. He looked like a strong wind could push him over. But he went right up to the Vampire King without fear, an angry, predatory light in his silver eyes. He was over a foot shorter than Damon and had to tip his head back to meet the Vampire King's gaze. Yet the difference in their sizes didn't daunt him at all.
You killed Heath. You killed Celine. They were my friends, my family. You have devastated Elena, and we cannot even find Timothy. He's likely stricken down somewhere, perhaps having suffered his second death too. That's 4 people in our house you have harmed.
William's voice was arctic.
Balthazar wants us to treat you like a guest. I cannot do this. Even if you were the legendary king of all vampires, I would want you dead.
In a movement so fast, Julian didn't even see it happening. William's right hand shot for Damon's throat, but he didn't make it there. Only it wasn't Damon who had stopped him. It was Julian. Julian found his hand was wrapped around William's right wrist, holding it in place with seeming ease. He hadn't even realized he'd done it. It was like his body knew what was coming from William even as his mind struggled to keep up. No other vampire had made a move. Damon hadn't even blinked. It was as if he had expected this to happen all along.
Don't touch him,
Julian found himself saying.
Don't you dare touch him. If you wish to blame someone for Celine and Heath's deaths, then you need to blame me. I asked Damon to kill them. They were trying to kill Christian and I first. It was self-defense, but I'm the one ultimately responsible for them dying.
Then you will die too!
William hissed and wrenched his arm away from Julian. The childlike vampire was set to strike out again. Arceus bellowed for him to stop and made a move to wrap his bear-like arms around the boy who seemed to be all muscle. But there was no need. William was suddenly floating in mid-air. His eyes went wide. He clawed at the air with his hands and kicked at it with his feet, trying to get purchase. But he was as harmless as a kitten.
Asher bloodline. Telekinesis.
Isabel murmured. It was only then that he noted her fingernails had seemingly grown into claws. But she didn't look like she was going to use them. Her eyes were huge with shock. Damon tilted his head to the side as he moved his right hand in the air, which in turn moved William until the young man was floating on his stomach at his eye level. William had stopped hissing and spitting. He didn't look as brave as he had before. There was a hint of fear in those silver eyes. But he did not beg for his life. Julian had to give him credit for that. He would have personally been peeing himself a little if Damon looked at him with such an outright, alien stare. There was the thump of many feet and the rush of clothing. Over a dozen vampires appeared in all of the doorways. There was no way out of that room that wasn't filled with enemies. Julian's heart beat hard. Fangs and claws were exposed. Silver eyes shining in the dark were fixed upon them. The vampires started to advance.
People, you all need to disperse.
Arceus waved a hand towards the vampires, but it did no good. They continued to move in. Stop. One word. Just like Balthazar, except it felt more primal. It felt like that word settled into Julian's bones, imprinted there. He felt that if Damon had meant it to be more than simply stop moving, that it could have stopped all their hearts and breathing and their very existence.
Iros bloodline. Mind control.
Isabel croaked. Arceus cleared his throat, awe written on his face, even though he had already accepted Damon as their king.
All of you need to leave. Balthazar will explain.
Let them stay. Damon said, out loud. His voice was rich and rolling. There was something of a mid-Atlantic accent about it, or maybe French, or maybe German, or... It was like nothing on this earth. It was beautiful, though, and it commanded. It was like hearing music.
Siren bloodline. Song compulsion.
Isabel murmured. Her claws and fangs had fully retracted. Her arms hung limply at her sides.
The first among equals is said to have the powers of all other bloodlines and...
Armageddon,
Arceus whispered. There was fear in the confessor's eyes. He was clearly worried that Damon might inflict that on all of them.
No killing, Damon. Please.
Julian begged silently, but he knew the Vampire King had heard him. There was the softest mental caress in response. They must see and understand, Damon continued in that musical yet deadly voice. He slowly began to walk around the room, regarding each and every vampire in it. As he met each vampire's gaze, they lowered theirs, unable to win a stare-down with him. Many actually bowed their heads. William continued to hang in the air like some very bizarre light fixture. Arceus and Isabel stayed where they were. It took a moment for Julian to shake off the compulsion to stay, and instead, he went to Damon's side. He kept slightly behind him and to the side of the Vampire King. He would defend him like he had against William if any of the vampires attacked.
He doesn't need any protection. Isn't he showing that to them now?
But Julian had no intention of being away from him. Finally, they finished their circuit of the room and returned to William. Though he looked at William as he spoke, Damon was addressing all in that room. I sent Selene and Heath to their second deaths. Julian asked me to do it, but I would have done so in any case. They came to Nightvallen uninvited. They sought to kill the one that would become my first fledgling. Second deaths have been earned for far less from me. Julian was shocked to see tears spring into William's eyes. He looked so like a beautiful child that it was painful to see, like a little boy about to dissolve into tears for lost friends. "What's going on here?" It was Balthazar's voice which rose up at that moment. He and Christian pushed through the vampires and came towards them. Christian made a beeline for Julian. They embraced.
Are you okay?
Christian's voice was blurred against Julian's shoulder.
I'm fine. Just a little issue about those two vampires that attacked us in Nightvallen,
he explained. Christian pulled back and looked at the floating William. His best friend put it all together in an instant.
He went after Damon and you for it? Yeah, the vampires were his friends,
Julian answered. Balthazar's face reddened with rage as he heard this. His silver eyes burned. He grasped William's chin cruelly. You attacked my guests? William's already porcelain-pale face went a grey color. He opened trembling lips and stammered,
He killed Heath and Selene!
Because they fucking disobeyed my orders and went into goddamn Nightvallen! Balthazar roared. They tried to kill Christian and Julian. If Damon hadn't killed them, I would have. Those words echoed throughout the room. Balthazar's head snapped towards all of his vampires. You've embarrassed me. You've shamed me. You've disobeyed me. I don't compel you. I give you freedom. I listen to all your goddamn complaints. But what do I get in return? Betrayal. Disrespect. Am I your lord or not? Any who think I am not worthy of leading you, speak up now. I'll have no problem showing you the old ways. Do you want that? Are we going back to that? None challenged him. Heads hung low. Shame practically radiated off of the group, excluding Julian, Christian, Damon, and Arceus.
You are my lord, Balthazar.
William sobbed.
I'm sorry,
Balthazar's hand tightened so much on his chin that Julian swore he heard the bones creak. Don't speak. Don't even.
He's gonna kill him,
Julian whispered in horror.
Christian, I don't want this. Please don't kill him, Balthazar.
Christian stepped up by William's side so that he was in Balthazar's line of sight. Balthazar's handsome face tightened. Christian, I know you don't like violence, but this
isn't necessary.
Christian insisted, his voice calm and even.
He acted out of love and pain. It's clear he didn't mean to disrespect you, and it's equally clear he couldn't have done anything to Damon or Julian.
I didn't mean it. I love you, my lord.
William bleated. Balthazar's jaw clenched. His head turned slightly towards Damon. You are the wronged party, Damon. What would you ask of me? If it is his death, it shall happen.
Please, Damon, no. This is Christian's new house. I want us to be a part of it too. We can't do that with all this death.
Julian begged. I require nothing more of you than what you have already done, Damon answered, and William was set upon the ground. The boy vampire immediately fell to his knees before Balthazar. His desire to avenge his friends' deaths is commendable. Damon spread his arms towards the other vampires in the room. The fact that your house came to his defense without hesitation speaks well of them, and of you, Lord Balthazar. You have forged a family among people who have been cast out and ill-used. I am sorry to have taken any of them from you. Julian's eyes closed a moment as he murmured,
Thank you, Damon.
He opened his eyes to see Balthazar's reaction to Damon actually speaking, not to mention what he had said. Balthazar had frozen, but then he slowly, almost haltingly turned his head to fully face the vampire king. For one moment, Julian could see this raw wound that was exposed, and a wild, almost shocked hope in Balthazar's expression. The look was gone as fast as it had appeared. Balthazar blinked and went back to looking down at William, though he didn't really seem to be seeing the other vampire. I appreciate your kind words. His voice rose. Damon and Julian are my guests. You will treat them as you would any other member of this house. Do you understand me? There were murmured assents all around. Silence fell once more. Arceus, you were going to take us to where we might feed? Damon asked the confessor. Arceus's head snapped up and his mouth opened and closed rather fish-like for a moment. But then he said graciously,
Of course. Let me take you there now.
Damon held out a hand towards Julian without turning to look at him. Julian cast a glance at Christian, but his best friend urged him to go with a nod of his head. He would take care of Balthazar and the aftermath of this mess. Julian grasped Damon's hand, and they followed Arceus out of the room. The other vampires parted before them with bowed heads and averted eyes.
Never a dull moment with you, is there?
Julian asked Damon. The vampire king flashed him a smile. Never indeed. Join us next time for episode 21 on Raven's Wings.
The entire team is really grateful for how much support we've received. I didn't start writing to get rich. There are far easier ways to do that. I never thought gay romance would make me into a household name with movie deals. I started because I wanted to entertain people with the stuff I loved. But now we've been able to do things like this podcast with all this amazing talent. On the Wraith Rain team, we're just ordinary people with bills and loans to pay. We have to make careful decisions with our money like everyone else. This is why we're always honored that people decide to support us, and it makes us want to keep doing even more. We look forward to bringing you all 147 episodes of Everdark. But after that, who knows? Sky might be the limit.
The Everdark podcast by Ex Aratare is performed by Edward Fox, Adam Riley, Jay Thillis, Bruno Devant, Kelly Michaels, and Hannah Hart, with Liz Gentle as Seer. Edited by Matthew Prince, continuity by Adrielle Wiggins. Everdark is produced by Wraith Rain Publishing in association with Her Grace Reed Studios. Copyright 2022 by Wraith Rain Publishing.